You're watching a production of South Dakota Public Broadcasting.
The answer to the question of who made the 1912 South Dakota State Fair film is underground at the State Cultural Heritage Center. It's in a book, the official record of South Dakota State Fair Board proceedings leading up to the 1912 fair.
The person who produced the film was H.S. Berlinger, and he was from St. Paul, Minnesota. In the contract it said he could film 2,000 feet of film, and the cost for that with the contract with Mr. Berlinger was $321.51.
Reitzel says that tracing the film's entire history has been a little bit tricky, but
what we know is that it was shot on 35 millimeter nitrate film. Back in August of 1945, Mr. Berlinger had donated photo stills of the film to the State Historical Society, and we have those in our collections. At some point, the 35 millimeter film was converted to 16 millimeter, and we're thinking that was done sometime in the early 50s because of what the makeup of the 16 millimeter film. In 1979, the 35 millimeter nitrate film was destroyed, and I don't know if that was in here or done somewhere else. That's kind of the part we don't know, but the film was destroyed after it was converted to the 16 millimeter. And then we took that film a few years back and had that 16 millimeter film, had conservation work done on it, and then had it converted to a digital format, so then we could take that and make it available on the South Dakota Digital Archives.
But why was that original film destroyed?
The problem with 35 millimeter nitrate film is it's highly combustible, and it's just a film that deteriorates quickly. So I'm sure once it was converted to the 16 millimeter and we had the photo stills from it, it was probably decided, again back in the 70s, that we would just be rid of the film and have what we had.
Why the State Fair Board wanted to have a film made in 1912 isn't specified in the minutes, but whether they intended it to or not, the film became a record of the fairgrounds and Fair Board contracted events of that year. Events like the airplane overflights.
There's 3 separate airplanes. One was a monoplane, which the newspaper dubbed as the first monoplane of the West, and, depending on where the West ends and starts. And then there was 2 additional biplanes that were there as well. But one thing of note, in 2 of the days, all 3 of the planes were flying at the same time, which was kind of a unique thing. One, to just have any planes at all at this time, but then they have 3 in the air.
The board also had an event contract with a group of Native Americans from the Crow Creek Reservation.
Part of the contract was that there would be an Indian village, what they called an Indian village, at the state fair, and it was almost like a separate exhibit. The newspaper lists a number of dances that they had. There were grass dances and bear dances and other kind of Native American dances that were seen at the fair. So that's a very important aspect of this film as well. The South Dakota 4th Infantry Band out of Watertown, you also see them on the film. They played as well, and their contract was that they had to play day and night. And the newspaper mentions that there were races at night and they had the track lit up, so the band was playing there as well, and the contract for them was $650.
Security for the 1912 State Fair was provided by the South Dakota Militia, a forerunner of the National Guard. Militiamen were hired to police the grounds. Look carefully and you'll see 1 or 2 pass through sections of the film. The militia was also expected to guard the many automobiles driven to Huron for the fair, and there were a lot of cars at the 1912 State Fair. And that's where the South Dakota State Fair of old begins to resemble the State Fair of today.
On our best days, the attendance figures are anywhere from 30 to 50,000 people on any given day. So I imagine there's 10 or 15,000 cars just moving about around the fairgrounds and in the different parking lots that we have and down the city streets.
Those Huron streets featured in the 1912 film were still dirt. In this view of Huron's main drag, you see as many horses and wagons as cars. Here's the view in 2012. People were camping at the fair in 1912 and even before that, but not like they did in 2012.
We have 1,256 electrical hookups on the fairgrounds for campers. We have an additional 150 to 200 spots across the street from the fairgrounds. So during the state fair, we have approximately 16 to 1,700 campers that show up here for the state fair.
Some people still come to the state fair with a tent, but it's not like it used to be. Leanne Gatormson grew up just across the street from the fairgrounds, and she's lived most of her life here. She's worked in the fair office and now works at the Dakota Land Museum right on the grounds. Her mother's family used to camp during the fair.
She was born in 1908. They used to come down here with a tent, and they'd come down one day and stay overnight, at least 1 or 2 nights, and then go home because they were north of Redfield, and that was a long ways in 1910 and so forth.
What people do at the fair, it seems, hasn't really changed that much over the past century. Agriculture has always been at the center of it. Grandstand shows have always been a big deal, whether it's racing or rodeo. The grandstand sheltering these rodeo fans was built in 1918. It replaced the 1912 grandstand. If you'd looked out over the back of the old grandstand in 1912, you'd have seen about 150 acres of buildings, barns, tents, and other structures. Look out over the back of the grandstand 100 years later, and it's all different. All of it. Not a single building remains from the 1912 fair. The old buildings gave way to age or lost purpose or fire. Many were replaced in the 1950s and 1960s. People's sensibilities at the fair changed over time, too.
When I was younger, and they had the old woman's building, and they used to have style shows on the east porch, and all of the ladies wore hats, and a lot of them had gloves. None of them wore slacks. They were all in dresses. Most of the men wore hats like these, what do they call them, derbies hats. And they were always, when you came to the fair, you dressed up.
That's not really how things are in 2012, but people keep coming. By one account, attendance at the 1912 State Fair was record-setting. The 2012 fair prolonged a 6-year streak of ever more people streaming through the gates.
We're very happy about the ways the state fair is doing right now. In the past 4 or 5 years, the attendance has increased by 30 to 40%. The revenues have increased by 20 to 30% in the past 5 or 6 years. We're increasing the number of off-season events on the grounds. It's a huge part of our revenue source, all those off-season events. So we're making good use of the grounds. We're utilizing the buildings that are here. During the winter months, we store vehicles in the buildings as an additional source of revenue. You know, the state fair has been around for a long time. It's been around for 125 years, and it's survived depressions and world wars, and I think it's going to be here for a long time to come also.
But if you look at now and look at then, it seems like changes in style and surroundings don't really matter. People dress differently, and old buildings have given way to new ones. Regardless, people continue to inhabit the fairgrounds during those few final summer days before the fall harvest. And it seems as though the same few important things that make the South Dakota State Fair what it is remain the same, year after year. The 1912 State Fair film is now available for you to view for free via the internet. If you'd like to download and view the film from the South Dakota Digital Archives, visit history.sd.gov/archives. Follow the 1912 State Fair link. There's also a link to the film on the South Dakota Public Broadcasting website at watch.sdpb.org. Follow the South Dakota Documentaries link.